Have you ever noticed how, when we are surrounded by people, laughter, and constant chatter, we often forget who we really are? We are so busy playing roles, the role of a friend, a partner, a colleague, a student, a parent, that somewhere along the way we lose touch with the most important person in our life, ourselves. And here's the paradox: in the pursuit of connection with others, we sometimes drift further away from the one person who will always be with us, ourselves. Solitude, my friends, is a mirror. And I don't mean the kind of mirror you look into every morning to check if your hair is messy or your tie is straight. I mean a mirror that reflects your soul, your thoughts, your fears, your desires, the deepest, truest version of yourself. When you are alone, you are forced to confront what you have been avoiding, what you have been hiding even from yourself. And let me tell you, that confrontation is not always comfortable. At first, it might feel awkward, even painful. Your mind might scream, "Why am I alone? Isn't there someone to distract me, someone to entertain me, someone to tell me I'm okay?" But if you resist the urge to run, if you sit with yourself patiently, something beautiful happens. You begin to see yourself clearly. In solitude, there are no masks. You are not trying to impress anyone. You are not pretending to be stronger, happier, or smarter than you are. You don't have to be anyone other than who you are. And that's when the magic begins. You start noticing patterns in your own behavior. You see your strengths without arrogance, and you notice your weaknesses without shame. You see your ambitions without the pressure to compete, and you feel your fears without the weight of judgment. In a crowd, these subtle truths are often hidden behind laughter, conversations, and distractions. Alone, they become impossible to ignore, and that is exactly what makes solitude so powerful. I remember a time in my own life when I was constantly busy: meetings, social events, calls, texts, and endless notifications. I thought being constantly connected meant being alive, being important. But inside, I felt a restlessness I couldn't explain. I decided, almost out of desperation, to spend a day completely alone. No phone, no social media, no distractions. Just me, a notebook, and a cup of tea. At first, it was uncomfortable. My mind jumped from thought to thought, reminding me of deadlines, regrets, and worries. But slowly, as hours passed, a quiet voice began to emerge, a voice I hadn't heard in years. It was the voice of my own intuition, my own clarity, my own inner wisdom. In that silence, I realized things about myself that I had been running from. I realized my fears were smaller than I imagined, my potential far greater than I allowed myself to believe. And most importantly, I realized that I didn't need constant external validation to feel whole. Solitude acts as a mirror, not just to show you who you are, but also to teach you self-acceptance. When you look into this mirror, you see the good, the bad, and the ordinary, and you learn to embrace all of it. You understand that it's okay to be imperfect, that it's okay to have moments of doubt, that it's okay to take time to grow. And as you accept yourself, a remarkable thing happens. You start showing up in the world differently. You become more confident, not because you are trying to prove something to others, but because you finally feel complete in your own presence. Another beautiful aspect of solitude is that it helps you understand your emotions. How often do we suppress feelings to avoid making others uncomfortable? How often do we bury sadness, frustration, or anger beneath a smile? Alone, these emotions surface. You confront them, you understand them, you process them. And in doing so, you become emotionally stronger, more resilient, and more compassionate, not just toward yourself, but toward others as well. It's important to understand that solitude is not the same as loneliness. Loneliness is a lack, a feeling of emptiness because we are disconnected. Solitude, on the other hand, is a choice. It is the decision to step away from the noise and chaos, to meet the most important person in your life, yourself. And when you embrace it, you begin to see life more clearly. You start recognizing what truly matters, what aligns with your values, and what nourishes your soul. So, I urge you to take moments of solitude in your own life. It could be 10 minutes a day, sitting quietly with your thoughts. It could be a walk in nature, without your phone, without distractions. It could be an entire weekend, away from the noise of the world. In those moments, look into the mirror of solitude. Observe yourself without judgment. Listen to the voice within. Understand your emotions. Accept your strengths and weaknesses. And most importantly, fall in love with your own company. Because when you truly know yourself, when you truly accept yourself, you no longer fear being alone. You discover a strength that no one can take away, a confidence that does not depend on anyone else's approval, and a peace that no circumstance can disturb. Solitude, my friends, is not emptiness. It is the mirror through which you meet the most extraordinary person in your life, you.
Have you ever noticed how our minds can feel like a crowded room filled with too many voices, too many opinions, too many distractions? Every day, we are bombarded with messages, alerts, responsibilities, and expectations. We listen to what the world wants from us, what our friends suggest, what society dictates, and sometimes, in the middle of all this noise, we forget what we truly want for ourselves. Our thoughts become tangled, our decisions unclear, and our hearts restless. And yet, there is a simple, a yet profound solution that has been available to humanity for centuries, moments of quiet, intentional solitude, where clarity of thought can emerge like sunlight breaking through the clouds. Clarity of thought is not simply about having answers. It is not about knowing the right strategy, the perfect plan, or the best decision at every moment. No, clarity is something deeper. It is understanding your priorities, recognizing your values, seeing life as it truly is rather than through the fog of distraction. When your mind is constantly occupied, clarity cannot grow. But when you allow yourself to be alone, even for a short while, the noise begins to fade, the clutter disappears, and suddenly, the answers that seemed so elusive come gently into view. I remember a time when I was struggling with an important decision in my own life. I was torn between what I thought I should do, what others expected of me, and what I secretly desired deep in my heart. I tried discussing it with friends, asking for advice, reading books, even meditating in passing moments. But nothing helped. Every solution I found felt like a patch on a larger confusion. Every choice I considered seemed incomplete. And then one day I simply sat alone, without distraction, without trying to force answers. I looked out the window, felt the breeze, and allowed my thoughts to settle like sediment in still water. Slowly, gradually, clarity began to emerge. The fog lifted, and I could see not just what I should do, but why I should do it. It was not the advice of others that mattered. It was my own inner guidance. Clarity of thought is a gift, but it is also a skill, one that grows stronger with practice. When we are alone, without the pressure of responding immediately, without the need to react or perform, we give our minds the space to organize, to reflect, and to process. It is in this space that creativity meets insight, where wisdom arises naturally, and where we begin to understand the difference between urgency and importance. Most of our stress comes not from the tasks themselves, but from the lack of clarity about what truly deserves our attention. Solitude allows us to prioritize, to filter out the noise, and to act with intention rather than habit. One of the most beautiful aspects of clarity of thought is that it frees us from indecision. Have you ever found yourself stuck in a loop, going back and forth between choices, endlessly analyzing, but never moving forward? That mental paralysis is a signal that your mind is cluttered, that you have not given yourself the gift of quiet reflection. In solitude, the mind can simplify. Complicated problems suddenly become manageable. Complex emotions become understandable. And what seemed like an impossible path begins to feel like a clear road illuminated by insight. Clarity of thought also brings honesty with oneself. When you are alone, there is no one to impress, no one to hide from, no one to judge you. You can examine your motives, your fears, and your desires without distortion. You begin to ask questions that matter. Am I doing this because I truly want to, or because I am afraid to disappoint someone? Am I following a path that aligns with my values, or merely the expectations of others? What will truly make me feel fulfilled in the long run? In that stillness, the mind stops running in circles, and the answers, which were always there, become visible. And here's the most profound part: clarity of thought doesn't just help in big decisions. It transforms every aspect of life. It allows you to communicate more effectively because you know what you truly feel. It allows you to act with purpose because you know what you truly value. It allows you to live with peace because you understand what is important and what can be let go. Life becomes less about reacting to circumstances and more about responding with intention. Of course, the world does not always give us the luxury of long periods of solitude. Responsibilities, work, and social connections demand our attention. But even small moments matter. A quiet cup of tea in the morning, a few minutes of reflection before bed, a mindful walk without distraction. These are the windows in which clarity can grow. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes to pause, reflect, and see things as they are rather than as they appear in the chaos of constant activity. Ultimately, clarity of thought is not just about decision making, it is about liberation. It frees you from confusion, from unnecessary worry, from the constant pull of external influence. It connects you with your inner compass, allowing you to navigate life with confidence, purpose, and calm. And it is in these moments of quiet reflection that we find one of life's greatest truths. The answers we seek are not outside of us, they have always been within, waiting for us to create the space to hear them. So, I invite you to embrace solitude not as emptiness, not as boredom, but as an opportunity. A sacred space where your thoughts can settle, your mind can organize, and your inner clarity can shine. Because when you have clarity of thought, you don't just survive life, you live it with wisdom, with focus, and with joy that is unwavering.
Have you ever wondered why some people seem to walk into a room and light it up with their presence, while others shrink in the corner, unsure if they even belong? The difference is not just talent, not just skill, not just appearance. It is self-confidence. And here is the thing: self-confidence is not something you are born with. It is not handed to you on a silver platter. It is something that grows quietly and steadily when you begin to trust yourself, when you embrace your own worth, and when you stop relying on the approval of others to define your value. A building self-confidence starts with a simple, yet often overlooked realization: the most important approval you will ever need is your own. We spend so much of our lives seeking validation from our friends, our family, our colleagues, or even strangers online. Do they like me? Do they respect me? Or am I good enough? These questions, if left unchecked, can quietly erode your confidence. But when you start to look inward, when you begin to appreciate your own strengths, your own efforts, and your own journey, something remarkable happens. You begin to understand that your worth is not conditional. You begin to see that the voice of self-doubt, which has been whispering in your ear for years, is not the truth. It is just a habit that can be changed. Confidence is built in small moments, not in grand gestures. It is built when you face your fears, when you take responsibility for your actions, and when you honor your own values, even when no one is watching. It is built when you try something new and stumble, and then try again and again without shame or regret. Each small victory, each step forward, each moment of courage strengthens your belief in yourself. Over time, these small acts accumulate like drops of water filling a reservoir until one day you wake up and realize that you no longer need constant reassurance from others. You are your own source of strength. Self-confidence is also deeply tied to self-awareness. You cannot truly trust yourself if you do not know yourself. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are the values that guide your decisions? Solitude, reflection, and honest self-examination allow you to answer these questions. And when you know yourself, when you understand your capabilities and your limitations, your confidence becomes grounded in reality, not arrogance. It becomes unshakable because it is based on truth, not pretense. One of the greatest misconceptions about confidence is that it requires perfection. Many of us think, I will feel confident when I have mastered this skill, or I will feel confident when others recognize my achievements. But true confidence is not about being flawless. It is about being authentic. It is about embracing your imperfections while still taking action. It is about standing tall, even when your knees shake, because you know that you are enough just as you are. Every time you step forward, despite fear or doubt, you are building a muscle, the muscle of self-belief that will serve you for a lifetime. Confidence is also about resilience. Life will challenge you, and sometimes it will knock you down in ways that feel unfair or overwhelming. But when you have built confidence, you do not crumble under pressure. You understand that failure is not a reflection of your worth, but a stepping stone to growth. You learn to rise not because you are fearless, but because you trust in your ability to navigate challenges. And that trust, once developed, radiates outward. People notice it. Opportunities begin to find you. Your actions carry weight, not because you are louder, but because you are grounded in self-assuredness. It is important to remember that building self-confidence is not a competition with others. It is a journey inward. You are not trying to outshine anyone. You are not trying to prove that you are better than someone else. You are simply learning to honor your own journey, to appreciate your own efforts, and to act from a place of self-respect. And when you do, a remarkable transformation occurs. Confidence is no longer dependent on circumstances or other people. It becomes a steady flame that lights your path, regardless of the storms that may come. Small habits contribute significantly to building confidence. Speaking kindly to yourself, acknowledging your progress, setting boundaries, and celebrating small wins all reinforce the belief that you are capable and worthy. Equally, being willing to step out of your comfort zone, to embrace challenges, and to confront fears reinforces that belief. Every time you succeed, every time you persist, every time you stand firm in your authenticity, you strengthen the foundation of your confidence. Ultimately, self-confidence is about freedom, the freedom to live life on your terms, to speak your truth, and to pursue your dreams without fear of judgment. It allows you to navigate relationships, career, and personal growth with a sense of inner assurance that cannot be shaken by the opinions of others. And here's the most beautiful part: confidence is contagious. When you are confident, you inspire confidence in others. You uplift those around you, not by giving advice, but simply by demonstrating what it means to believe in oneself. So, I urge you, begin the journey of building self confidence today, not by comparing yourself to others, not by seeking external approval, but by looking inward, embracing your worth, and stepping forward with courage. Trust in your abilities, honor your values, and take one small step at a time. Because when you truly believe in yourself, the world around you begins to transform, doors open, relationships deepen, and opportunities appear, not because you are lucky, but because you have discovered the unshakable strength that has always existed within you. Self-confidence is not an end, it is a journey. And that journey begins the moment you decide to trust yourself, to embrace your own value, and to walk through life with courage, authenticity, and unwavering belief in who you are. Have you ever wondered why some of the most profound ideas in history were born not in the midst of chaos, but in moments of stillness? Creativity, my friends, is not just about painting a masterpiece, writing a book, or inventing something new. Creativity is the natural expression of the mind when it is free, when it is uncluttered, when it is allowed to breathe. And the paradox is simple: in the noise of constant activity, in the rush of schedules and responsibilities, creativity often hides. It waits patiently, like a seed beneath the soil, until it is given space, attention, and solitude to sprout and grow. When we are alone, without distractions, the mind has room to wander. It begins to notice connections that were previously invisible. Patterns emerge where once there was only chaos. Solutions present themselves where before there seemed to be only problems. Creativity is less about trying hard and more about allowing yourself to be, allowing your mind to explore, to reflect, and to play. And this playfulness is what distinguishes the mundane from the extraordinary. I remember a period in my own life when I was facing a challenge that seemed insurmountable. I was stuck in routine, going through the motions, and trying desperately to force ideas that simply weren't coming. Frustration mounted because I was looking outward for answers, advice from colleagues, articles, podcasts, anything that might spark inspiration. But the breakthrough came not from external input, but from a moment of quiet, intentional solitude. I was sitting alone in my room, not thinking about the problem actively, but letting my mind drift, and suddenly an idea emerged, fully formed, seemingly out of nowhere. That moment taught me one of life's most important lessons: creativity cannot be forced. It must be nurtured, and it flourishes in silence. Creativity is also about authenticity. When you are alone, you are no longer performing for anyone else. You don't have to meet expectations or conform to norms. You are free to explore your own ideas, your own passions, your own unique perspective. And it is in that freedom that originality emerges. The mind that is constantly seeking approval tends to imitate. The mind that is free tends to innovate. Every great artist, scientist, writer, or thinker knew this in their own way. Some of their most revolutionary work came from hours, days, or even months of solitude, where they could listen to the whispers of their own imagination without interference. Another remarkable aspect of creativity is that it thrives on observation. When you slow down, when you are present with yourself, you start noticing details that usually go unnoticed. A passing conversation, the way sunlight falls on a wall, the rhythm of rain on a rooftop, all these small moments feed the creative mind. And the more you observe, the more material your mind has to create with. Creativity, in essence, is connecting the dots in ways that no one else has thought of, and that connection requires the mind to be uncluttered and attentive, something that solitude naturally facilitates. Many people fear being alone because they equate it with boredom, emptiness, or loneliness. But solitude is the very soil in which creativity grows. It allows the mind to slow down, to reflect, to experiment without judgment. Mistakes, failed attempts, and false starts are not problems in solitude, they are stepping stones. In fact, some of the most creative moments in life come from failure because the mind, when given freedom, learns, adapts, and finds a better way. Creativity is a dance between freedom and discipline, imagination and focus, exploration and execution. And solitude provides the rhythm and space for that dance to unfold naturally. Creativity is not limited to traditionally artistic endeavors. It shows up in every aspect of life, in problem solving at work, in improving relationships, in finding better ways to manage time, in cooking a meal, or even in the way you approach personal growth. When your mind is clear, when you are comfortable in your own company, when you have the freedom to think without immediate judgment, creativity flows effortlessly. It turns ordinary experiences into opportunities for innovation and transformation. And here's the beauty: creativity is contagious, but it starts within. When you nurture your own creativity, you inspire those around you. When you demonstrate curiosity, playfulness, and original thinking, you create an environment where others feel safe to explore their own ideas. Solitude, therefore, does not isolate you from the world. It prepares you to engage with it more meaningfully. You return to interactions with fresh perspectives, new solutions, and a renewed sense of enthusiasm. To awaken creativity, you must treat your mind like a garden, give it space, remove distractions, allow it time to rest, reflect, and play. Nourish it with curiosity, observation, and authenticity. And remember, it is in the quietest moments, in the simplest reflections, that the most profound ideas often emerge. So I encourage you, embrace moments of solitude, not as empty time to be filled, but as precious opportunities to let your mind roam, to explore, and to create. Sit with yourself, listen to your thoughts, notice the world around you, experiment, imagine, dream. Because when creativity awakens, life becomes richer, more vibrant, and infinitely more meaningful. You begin to see possibilities where once there were none, solutions where once there were obstacles, and beauty where once there was only routine. Solitude is not an escape. It is the gateway to your imagination, your originality, and your potential. When you allow your mind the freedom to wander and reflect, you awaken creativity not as an occasional spark, but as a constant companion on your journey through life. And that, my friends, is the extraordinary power of being alone. Emotional strength is one of the most underrated, yet essential, qualities a person can develop. We often admire physical strength, intelligence, or even charisma, but emotional strength, the ability to face life's challenges, setbacks, and disappointments with calm and resilience, is what truly sustains us through the storms of life. And the fascinating truth is that emotional strength is cultivated in the quiet, often invisible moments of life, especially in moments of solitude. It is nurtured when we learn to confront our feelings rather than escape them, when we begin to understand that our emotions, no matter how intense, are not permanent, and that our response to them defines our character. Think about it for a moment. Life is unpredictable. People we trust may hurt us, plans we make may fail, opportunities we long for may vanish. Without emotional strength, these moments can feel devastating. We may spiral into despair, anger, or anxiety. But with emotional strength, we are able to acknowledge the pain without being consumed by it, to face challenges without giving up, and to recover from setbacks with grace. It is not about suppressing emotions or pretending that difficulties do not exist. It is about recognizing them, accepting them, and responding with awareness and purpose. Solitude plays a crucial role in building this strength. When you are alone, there is no one to distract you, no one to console you, no one to blame. You are forced to sit with your own emotions, to understand them, and to process them. At first, this can be uncomfortable. You may feel vulnerable, exposed, or even frightened by the intensity of your feelings. But in that discomfort lies the seed of resilience. The more you allow yourself to experience and navigate your emotions in solitude, the stronger you become. You learn that you are capable of handling life's uncertainties, that you can survive disappointment, and that you can emerge from challenges wiser and more centered. I remember a period in my own life when I faced a profound personal setback. It felt as though the ground beneath me had crumbled and I was suspended in uncertainty. In the midst of that turmoil, I realized that no external solution could immediately fix what I was feeling. Friends could offer support, advice, or distraction, but the emotional journey, the process of facing, understanding, and accepting my own feelings, had to happen alone. I allowed myself to sit with my pain, to reflect on my reactions, and to confront the lessons hidden within the struggle. It was in that space of solitude that I discovered an inner reservoir of strength I had never tapped before. I realized that true resilience does not come from avoiding hardship, but from embracing it, learning from it, and allowing it to transform you. Emotional strength also teaches patience. In a world obsessed with instant gratification, we often expect our pain, disappointment, or anxiety to vanish immediately. When it doesn't, we may feel frustrated, anxious, or powerless. Solitude, however, slows life down. It allows us to observe our emotions without judgment, to witness their ebb and flow, and to recognize that even the most intense feelings are temporary. This awareness cultivates patience, and with patience comes the ability to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. A person with emotional strength does not allow anger, fear, or sadness to dictate their actions. They acknowledge their emotions, feel them fully, and then choose their response consciously. Another essential aspect of emotional strength is self-compassion. When we are alone, we have the opportunity to speak kindly to ourselves, to understand that imperfection is part of being human, and to forgive ourselves for mistakes. Emotional strength is not about being tough or stoic. It is about being gentle with yourself while standing firm in your values and principles. When you practice self-compassion, You create a foundation of stability that no external circumstance can easily shake. You learn to comfort yourself and motivate yourself and guide yourself through life's challenges. Moreover, emotional strength is deeply tied to perspective. Solitude allows us to reflect on life, to step back from immediate problems, and to see the bigger picture. We begin to understand that difficulties are often temporary, that suffering is a universal experience, and that growth frequently emerges from struggle. This perspective does not minimize our challenges, rather, it empowers us to approach them with clarity, courage, and resilience. When you view life through this lens, you become less reactive, less fearful, and more capable of navigating complexity with grace. Emotional strength also strengthens our relationships. A person who has cultivated emotional resilience is not dependent on others for validation, emotional stability, or reassurance. They engage with others from a place of abundance, empathy, and understanding, rather than neediness or fear. They can support others without being overwhelmed, love others without losing themselves, and communicate authentically without defensiveness. In other words, emotional strength is not just a personal asset, it enriches every interaction and every connection we have in life. In essence, emotional strength is freedom. Freedom from being tossed around by every challenge, every criticism, every disappointment. Freedom to navigate life with calm, courage, and clarity. Freedom to face your own fears, accept your own feelings, and move forward with purpose. And this freedom, once cultivated, becomes a lifelong companion, a guiding force that remains with you even when circumstances are difficult, uncertain, or painful. So I urge you to embrace moments of solitude not as loneliness, but as an opportunity to strengthen your emotional core. Sit with your feelings, reflect on your experiences, and practice patience, self-compassion, and perspective. The storms of life may still come, but when you have emotional strength, you learn to navigate them with grace. You become unshakable, not because life becomes easier, but because you have discovered the power within yourself to remain steady, resilient, and centered, no matter what comes your way. Have you ever noticed how much of our life is shaped by the expectations of others? From a very young age, we are taught what is acceptable, what is normal, what we should do to fit in. Friends, family, colleagues, society, all have opinions about what success looks like, how we should behave, and who we should become. And in the process, we often forget the most important question: what do I want? What truly aligns with my values, my passions, my purpose? Living under the weight of social pressure can make life feel heavy, exhausting, and even unfulfilling. But there is a remarkable gift that comes from being alone: freedom. Freedom from judgment, freedom from comparison, and freedom to be your authentic self. Freedom from social pressure begins with self-awareness. When we are constantly surrounded by others, it is easy to adopt their standards, opinions, and expectations as our own. I should dress this way, I should speak this way, I should achieve this by now. These thoughts can dominate our minds if we are not careful. But in solitude, when you are alone with yourself, there is no one to please, no one to impress, and no one to compare yourself to. You are forced to confront the real question: what matters to me? What choices align with my values, my dreams, and my well-being? And when you answer this honestly, You begin to experience a freedom that is impossible to find in constant social approval. I remember a time in my life when I felt trapped by expectations. Every decision seemed weighed down by the imagined judgment of others. I was not pursuing certain opportunities because I feared criticism, and I was following paths that didn't feel right because I thought they would earn me approval. It was exhausting, physically, mentally, and emotionally. And then I intentionally chose to spend time alone, away from the noise and opinions. In that solitude, I began to question why I was living the way I was. I realized that much of my discomfort came from trying to satisfy others rather than honoring my own truth. That realization was liberating. I began to make choices based on authenticity rather than expectation, and slowly, life felt lighter, more purposeful, and more aligned with who I truly am. Social pressure can manifest in many ways: subtle comments from friends, comparisons on social media, cultural norms, professional expectations, and most of the time, we internalize these pressures unconsciously. We start defining our worth by the standards set by others rather than by our own values. Solitude acts as a mirror in this situation. It allows us to step back and observe the influence of these pressures without judgment. You begin to notice which fears are truly yours and which have been imposed on you by others. You realize that many of the limitations you have accepted are not real, but constructed by society, by peers, and sometimes even by your own assumptions about what others might think. Freedom from social pressure is not about rebellion or isolation. It is about conscious choice. It is about deciding to live life on your own terms while respecting the world around you. When you are free from the constant need for approval, your decisions become intentional rather than reactive. You choose paths that nourish your soul rather than paths that merely look impressive. You speak words that reflect your truth rather than words that are safe or popular. And in doing so, you experience a profound sense of peace and empowerment. One of the most beautiful consequences of this freedom is authenticity in relationships. When you are no longer driven by the need to impress or conform, you attract people who appreciate the real you. Friendships deepen, connections become more meaningful, and interactions are based on honesty rather than performance. You begin to engage with others from a place of abundance, not seeking validation, but sharing and contributing because it feels genuine. And this, my friends, is one of life's great joys. Connecting with people not because you have to, but because it is authentic, enriching, and mutually fulfilling. Freedom from social pressure also nurtures courage. It takes courage to stand apart, to say no when everyone else says yes, to pursue a path that others might not understand. But solitude strengthens that courage. When you spend time alone, reflecting on your values and priorities, you build inner conviction. You develop the confidence to face criticism, skepticism, or even ridicule without losing your sense of self. And over time, this courage becomes a natural part of who you are, enabling you to live boldly without fear of judgment. It is important to understand that freedom from social pressure does not mean ignoring wisdom or feedback. It means discerning whose advice matters, whose expectations are reasonable, and whose opinions are irrelevant to your path. Solitude gives you the clarity to make this distinction. It allows you to filter the noise and focus on what truly contributes to your growth, happiness, and purpose. Ultimately, freedom from social pressure is freedom to live authentically. It is the ability to make choices that honor your values, to act without fear of judgment, and to create a life that is genuinely yours. And the beauty of this freedom is that it radiates outward. When you live authentically, others are inspired to do the same. You become a quiet example of courage, self-respect, and integrity. So I urge you, embrace moments of solitude not as loneliness, but as a sanctuary, a space where you can listen to your own voice, reflect on your priorities, and reclaim the freedom that is your birthright. Free yourself from comparison, from judgment, and from the endless weight of expectations. Discover the joy of making decisions that are true to you. Stand firm in your values, pursue your passions, and let authenticity guide your path. Because when you are free from social pressure, you are truly free to live, to love, and to become the person you were always meant to be.